morning, everybody. Welcome back again to this sort of last edition of the Recharge Your Mind or Change Your Mindset series. This one hopefully is going to link us a little bit to the marketing module, which follows this one, which we will start tomorrow morning. This one is going to deal with a concept that originated from a guy called Simon Sinek. You're probably all very familiar with him. Simon Sinek has all kinds of insights on sort of global business practices and philosophies and theories around business. And one of his concepts he calls the golden circle. And really what it amounts to is it's the behavior of people towards their businesses that is key. It's a very simple behavior. It's a three-step behavior, but we do it the wrong way around. Now, we've heard of that before. Earlier on, we talked about human behavior, where we do what we want to do before we do what we can do, before we do what we need to do. In this particular instance, it's the same kind of situation whereby we approach business in a certain kind of way naturally, which is in fact reverse to the way that we should do business. So what I'm going to do with you now is I'm going to share my screen with you, and we'll go over a presentation of these sort of three viewpoints from Simon Sinek's point of view, and then we'll just analyze them and see how they relate or translate into something that connects to your marketing, to your practical experiences. Now, as you see here, we always kind of look at our lives and our businesses and wonder why it is that some people succeed and other people don't. Why is it that they do better than I do? What is it that takes them to the next level where suddenly they've got 2 stores, 3 stores, 4 stores? We always have this question that surrounds us, and the answer Simon Sinek says is very simple, and he refers to it as the golden circle. My particular presentation here, I'm going to refer to as the golden egg. It's just my take on it, but the principle is exactly the same and still applies. What Simon Sinek says is, if you take these 3 circles, the outer circle represents the what. The middle circle represents how, and the inner circle represents the why. Now, what people normally do in their businesses is they start their businesses with the what. Okay, so they ask themselves, okay, what can I sell? I've got this particular product. It may be a lawnmower, and let me try and sell this lawnmower. Then they go to the point where they say, well, how am I going to sell this lawnmower? Okay, the best thing to do is to first get a stock of lawnmowers. Then I'll get the best lawnmowers. I'll handpick each one of them based on their intrinsic properties. And then I'll open up a little shop. I'll find a venue. Then I'll do some advertising, and I'll allow people to walk past the shop, see them in the window, and I'll sell lawnmowers from there. The only challenge with that is that most people stop at that particular point in terms of the development of their business. They say to themselves, well, I'm in the business of selling lawnmowers. So they continue to sell the lawnmower. They continue using the what and how principle. Okay, what must I do next? And how must I do it? I've now sold 3 lawnmowers. How do I sell 6 lawnmowers? Then it's 12 lawnmowers. And it becomes a repetitive cycle. And this is often where businesses fail, and they feel like they've hit a brick wall, because business just simply becomes repetitive. And there's no real reason for them to actually explore, why am I doing this anyway? What is the purpose of this business? Am I doing it to collect money? Well, invariably the answer is no, because yes, I started out with the intention of getting money, but I'm not getting money because I'm just struggling to sell the next lawnmower and the next one and the next one. I'm just in this vicious cycle that gets me nowhere. But the third question is in fact the most important. It's the critical question, and this is what really good business owners and business startups do first. They first ask themselves why, not what. Why? Why am I getting into this business? What is my purpose behind getting into it? Am I getting into this business to make money? Well, if you're saying that is your why, then you're making a mistake, because money is only a byproduct. Let's take the example of the lawnmower guy. If I had to say to myself, well, the reason I want to do this is because I just love gardening. I so enjoy it. It's a passion of mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and turn this passion of mine into a business. What is the best way of doing that? Okay, I think the best way of doing that is probably to start a garden shop or a landscaping business. But in this particular instance, somebody may say to themselves, well, what do people use to beautify their gardens? What's the first tool that they buy to really make their gardens look good? And it's usually to have a really nice lawn. So what I'll do is I'll sell lawnmowers. But I've got my why now, and I focus towards my why. Now I say, okay, now how am I going to get to that point? Well, I'm going to get to that point by helping people to beautify their gardens by delivering to them the best lawnmower possible. Okay, so now what do I have to get? Well, I have to get the best lawnmower possible, don't I? So I have to look into lawnmowers. I have to find the ones that cut the best. So immediately you've now got a purpose. So it's very similar to what I talked about earlier in an earlier presentation, where I talked about our destination. Our why is our destination. So his destination was to beautify people's gardens. Suddenly the road became clear to him on what he had to do and how he had to go about doing it. So successful businesses start first with the why, because that gives them the direction that they go in. The second is how. How now do I go about achieving this why? And then only lastly do they say, okay, what do I need to achieve my why? That's the third point. But each step becomes much clearer and much easier to understand if you start with the why. Okay, so the plate in this particular instance, we've got the egg on the plate. The plate in this particular instance is in fact just a mechanical thing. The white of the egg is functional. So the how is functional. It's a function of food for the chick when the chick actually grows up before it breaks out of the eggs. But what it's really all about at the end of the day is in fact the yolk of this egg. In other words, this is the purpose. The chick grows up into an adult and becomes a chicken. From the culinary point of view, the yolk is always the nicest part of the egg, and that's the part that you always leave till last. So the yolk of the egg becomes the purpose behind what you're doing. The why becomes the purpose. And this, Simon Sinek tells us, is actually related very closely again to our human behavior, our natural human behavior, because it connects very clearly with how the brain operates. Our brain has basically three different segments to it, okay? And I've just laid the graphic over the top here to illustrate it. The neocortex is your rational thinking. In other words, that's the plate. That's the part where if you're selling a car, for example, you might begin to sell it based on its engine capacity, based on its fuel consumption, based on the fact that it's got an air conditioner, power steering, radio, Wi-Fi, whatever it might be inside there, Bluetooth, etc. So those are all intrinsic values of it. And that's really what the neocortex deals with. It deals with the rational, logical part of our thinking. The limbic, or the emotional part of our brain, deals with pure emotion. It deals with the things like how beautiful is it, how amazing can I be. It deals with our image, portraying our image. It deals with status. It deals with all those emotional values. The limbic brain, or the emotional brain, drives decision making. This is what creates the decision in a purchase of a particular product, let's say. The neocortex, which is the rational part of the brain, drives justification. Now, Why becomes then the central point on which we focus in the marketing field, for example, and the advertising industry has been doing this for many years. I've been in the advertising industry for 40 years, and they've been adopting this particular principle for many years now. What they talk about is they talk about let's sell the sizzle rather than the steak. And that's literally what it's about. So if you're going to sell a steak, you're not going to say, well, it's redder or it's pinker or it's bigger or it's fatter. When you sell the steak, you're going to sell the steak on the taste and the feeling and the emotional value that that steak has. Oh, it just makes it all mouth-watering when you see the appetite appeal of it. So that's what drives the decision. That's what makes us decide, oh, I think I'd rather have a steak today than a piece of chicken. So the why is what drives the decision making. The justification is I want to spoil myself. I've got a little bit more money today, end of the month. So the whole rationalization side of the brain deals with justification rather than decision making. So to relate that now to a typical advert, for example, but the person who created this ad, their mindset was, I want to sell lawnmowers. That's what my business is doing. So they've defined their business as a lawnmower selling business. So I sell lawnmowers. That looks very feasible, 600 Rand each. I would spend 600 Rand on a lawnmower, even that looks like that, before I even begin to rationalize it. But remember that all they're doing here is that they're actually showing the product. In other words, the only value I get out of it is its intrinsic value. In other words, I don't even get the mechanics in this particular instance. I just get the looks. But still I can say, oh, it's still worth 600 Rand. I'm likely to buy that. But what happens if I had to say to you, new, just released, only 6,500 Rand each? Now, the intrinsic value that I'm looking at, although it hasn't changed at all, the intrinsic value itself has changed dramatically. I say to myself, sorry, I look at that lawnmower, definitely not worth 6,500 Rand. I think I'll go and look for a 600 Rand one somewhere else. But if I had to say, for example, make a different kind of promise to the person reading that advert, and I had to say to them, art lessons for life, only 6,500 Rand. In other words, you can use your imagination, you can create this stunning garden. And an integral part of creating this stunning garden, as you can see, would be the best lawnmower that money can buy. Now suddenly that exact same lawnmower is worth 6,500 Rand. So you can see how the golden egg or the golden circle equates to what you do, for example, in your marketing, and not just in your business. Now I'm going to show you something designed primarily for the men. And a lot of people have argued this particular factor, but the reality is that emotion drives the decision to buy. And when you look at a product like this, you realize the truth of what we're talking about here. There's no rationalization behind this. I don't care what you say. You can say, oh, no, I bought it because it's fast. No. Or I bought it because it's got a spectacular engine. Or I bought it because it looks good. No. You bought it because it makes you look good. It's got nothing to do with the car. The car has built itself up to a status symbol, and you want the status symbol. You're buying the status symbol, not the car. And for the ladies out there who think, oh yeah, this is just a big testosterone thing for the guys, it applies to you as well. If we look at the diamond, for example, contrary to popular belief, the diamond is one of the most common of all the gemstones. The tanzanite is 800 times more valuable or more rare than the diamond. And yet the diamond has some kind of value that goes beyond, way beyond the intrinsic value of the product. Okay, so I can kind of hear you guys saying, well, you know, what does diamonds and Porsches got to do with a commodity product? I'm just selling some nuts and bolts at the hardware store. So let's take a look at something like a tin of spray paint and how this can apply to something, a simple commodity like this. You might say to yourself, okay, how do I sell this spray paint? And traditionally what we would do is we'd say sprays better than the other guy's spray paint. But there's no way of proving that until you buy it and you try it and you try both of them and you compare the two. So they're asking you to trust them. Not a great way to sell, because the moment you tell somebody, trust me, the last thing they usually do is trust you. So you can say, well, it's got a little green spray top. It's got a green matching cap. It holds 750 milliliters of paint. It's got an ergonomically designed encasing. You can give all the kind of intrinsic values you like, but it's not really going to particularly excite anybody. So how do I take a tin of spray paint and give it a far greater value than the intrinsic value of the spray paint itself? What you do is you show what the spray paint can do for you. It's not about what's in the can, it's about what the spray paint can do for you. And the sky in this particular case is the limit. Now this picture tells you a number of things. First of all, it tells you all the different colors that you get. Okay, so it even carries a message of intrinsic. It'll last you a long time because look at the area, the surface area that it's covered. You can be creative with it. You don't have to be mundane. It's not about spraying a doorknob or a door. You can do so much more with it. This is most likely outdoors. It's a mural, so our paint can be used outdoors and it has longevity. So there are all kinds of values that come across in this product that are intrinsic values. But it's the emotional reason that you're going to buy this paint. Wow, look what I can do with this paint. I'm going to buy that particular brand. Or that is certainly on the top of my list. I may find that it's a terrible brand and I'll go and buy something else, but it's unlikely to be a terrible brand because they have most likely started with the why. Why is it that we're in business? It's because we want to help people to make the most spectacular images imaginable out there, to make the most beautiful surfaces, to be long lasting. That's what we want to do. That's our why. So the value now of this particular can of spray paint comes into the fore. So when we look at the plate and egg scenario, the golden egg scenario, as I call it, it's not about garnishing the plate. It's not about taking the plate and trying to make the plate look good. It's about getting to the appetite appeal. It's about getting to the appetite of what it is that people are going to buy. Yes, the plate is important. Yes, the garnish is quite nice on the side. You know, it makes the plate look a little less bland and garish. But really, it's not about the plate, albeit that the plate is functional and absolutely necessary. I'm not downplaying the functionality of the plate. The plate is necessary because you don't want to put your egg onto your tablecloth and get grease all over it. So the plate is functional, but what I really buy at the end of the day is that lovely, delicious, juicy egg. And even there, I'd focus on the yolk of the egg because that's the nicest part. I challenge any one of you to tell me that actually you eat the yolk first and you wait and eat the white of the egg later. But one can see now how the value of Simon Sinek's golden circle applies not just to your business, although it is absolutely applicable to your business. And it takes us back to the beginning of this series of what is your mindset, where we talked about reprogramming your brain, turning it from a what, how, why to a why, how, what. By that simple practice, you can actually get more to the heart and core and nucleus of what your business is all about, and also what apply the same principle to what your marketing is all about.